It was supposed to be a dream home, 6 bedrooms, a big backyard, a quiet, affluent neighborhood in Westfield, New Jersey, one of the safest towns in America. For Derek and Maria Broaddus, 657 Boulevard was not just a house. It was a symbol of success, a fresh start for their family of 5. But what they didn't know, as they signed the papers and smiled for the realtor's camera, was that someone was already watching, not just the house, them watching their children, their routines, their secrets. And he had been watching for decades. It all began just 3 days after they closed the deal. The mailbox held a white envelope, no return address. The handwriting was sharp, deliberate, almost old-fashioned. Inside was a letter that would launch a real-life American nightmare. It started polite. Dearest new neighbor at 657 Boulevard, allow me to welcome you to the neighborhood. But as Derek read on, the words darkened. 657 Boulevard has been the subject of my family for decades now. I have been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming. My grandfather watched the house in the 1920s, and my father watched it in the 1960s. It is now my time. Do you know the history of the house? Do you know what lies within the walls of 657 Boulevard? Why are you here? The letter was signed simply, The Watcher. At first, Derek thought it was a prank. Sick joke. But then came the next line. I see you have already flooded 657 with contractors so that you can destroy the house as it was supposed to be. The Watcher knew about the renovations, knew about the workers. He knew the names of Derek and Maria's 3 children, all under 10, though they had never mentioned them publicly. Even worse, he referred to them by nickname. I see one child is painting in the sunroom. The room was once full of laughter and life. Now I watch them from the windows. The Watcher was real, and he was close. Derek called the police. An officer read the letter and looked visibly disturbed. But there was little they could do. No crime had been committed. No threats had been made, and still the Watcher wrote. Another letter arrived days later. Then another, each more invasive, more taunting. He spoke of being patient, of waiting for the young blood to inhabit the house, of the second coming. He described hidden passageways, movements in the attic, strange creaks. He claimed to hear things the family couldn't, and he always ended the same way. Welcome again to your new home at 657 Boulevard. I will be watching. The Broaddus's were paralyzed with fear. They hadn't even moved in yet. Their renovations weren't complete, and already their dream home felt like a prison. Derek started staying up at night, patrolling the property. He installed cameras, alarms, motion detectors. But the Watcher saw everything. One letter read, You have changed it and made it so fancy. It cries for the past and what used to be in the time when I roamed its halls. The house is crying. You have aroused its anger. Soon, Maria found herself terrified to bring the children near the property. What if the Watcher was someone from the neighborhood? What if he was hiding in plain sight? They started to suspect everyone. The woman next door, who always peeked from behind her curtain. The elderly couple across the street, who had lived there since the 50s. Even the friendly mailman. Paranoia grew like ivy on the brick walls of 657 Boulevard. Eventually, they hired a private investigator. They even reached out to a forensic linguist to analyze the Watcher's writing, hoping to find a clue in the vocabulary or sentence structure. But nothing concrete came back, just more questions. The police advised them not to tell anyone, not the neighbors, not the press, but fear as a way of leaking. Rumors began to swirl through Westfield, and then came a chilling discovery. The previous owners, the Woods family, admitted they too had received a letter from the Watcher just before they sold the house. Only one. It hadn't seemed threatening at the time, so they didn't mention. But now, Derek and Maria realized the Watcher wasn't reacting to them. He had been waiting for them. This was planned. As pressure mounted, Derek and Maria tried to back out of the purchase. But it was too late. The house was theirs, legally, financially, emotionally. Trapped. And then the Watcher changed tone. In the 4th letter, he wrote, I am pleased to know your names now, and the name of the young blood you have brought to me. Have they found what is in the walls yet? In time, they will. The phrase, "what is in the walls," would haunt Derek and Maria forever. They began ripping open drywall, searching for hidden spaces, old letters, cameras, anything, but nothing turned up. By now, the story leaked. First the neighbors heard, then the media, then the entire country. Westfield, New Jersey, once ranked the safest town in America, had a ghost, a real one, a ghost that watched and waited. People lined up outside 657 Boulevard just to take photos. Some laughed, some prayed. Others warned the Broadduses to leave, while they still could, but they didn't leave. Not yet. They tried to rent out the house. No takers. They tried to sell. But the Watcher's legend had already gone viral. Real estate agents walked out during showings. Prospective buyers changed their minds the moment they Googled the address. The value of the property tanked, and the Broadduses were stuck with a mortgage they couldn't afford, and a house they couldn't live in. Then things got darker. Letters started referencing their personal lives, things they'd only shared inside their temporary home. The Watcher wasn't just watching 657, he was watching them. He wrote, maybe a car accident, maybe a fire, maybe something as simple as a minor illness that never quite goes away but makes you feel sick day after day. That's how I'll hurt you. It wasn't just a game anymore. It was a psychological siege. Derek began to spiral. He created elaborate maps of the neighborhood, noting every resident, every angle of visibility. He tracked deliveries, hired security, consulted with criminal profilers. And one name kept circling back, a man who lived just behind 657 Boulevard. A man with no alibi, a disturbing past, and a deep fascination with the house. But proving it? Impossible. To this day, no fingerprints, no cameras, no suspect, no charges. The Watcher was always one step ahead. The house at 657 Boulevard stood still, as if holding its breath. The walls, those same walls the Watcher cryptically referenced, remained untouched by answers. But inside Derek and Maria Broaddus, something had shifted. The fear was no longer an undercurrent. It was now the atmosphere. Every shadow stretched longer. Every sound was suspect. They had stopped sleeping at the house, but the Watcher never stopped writing. The fifth letter arrived in winter, colder than the season itself. I have waited for so long, it read, and you are the ones I've been waiting for. The house knows you. It chose you. But you are fighting it. The lines felt as if they had been pulled from a script, something otherworldly, like the house was alive. Maria couldn't stop replaying the words in her mind. The house chose you? What did that even mean? Was this madness? Or was there something beneath the surface? A deeper, darker history they hadn't uncovered? They turned to records, archives, historical documents. Westfield city records traced 657 Boulevard back over a century. Built in 1905, it had belonged to a series of prominent families, bankers, doctors, even a judge. But there were gaps, entire decades with missing documentation, lost deeds, incomplete sales. One entry from 1932 simply read, "No record available." Local folklore suggested the house had been cursed, that it had seen blood in the early 1940s, but no one could confirm anything. It was all whispers, speculation, the kind of urban myth that towns quietly protect. Until now, the Watcher seemed to know everything, not just about the house, but about them. He referenced their past addresses, their wedding date, the university Derek had attended, their favorite restaurant, even Maria's childhood pet. The details were terrifying. Some were public record, yes, but others deeply personal. Derek became obsessed with the idea that someone close, very close, was feeding the Watcher this information. But who? Suspicion poisoned everything. Their friends, their family, even the babysitter. At one point, Derek and Maria stopped telling anyone their plans. No more social media. No more casual conversations with neighbors. Still, the letters kept coming. The sixth one arrived on an otherwise quiet Thursday afternoon. "You are trying to ignore me," it read, "but I am inside the house more than you are. I walk its halls at night. I watched the moonlight spill across the hardwood floors. I listened to the pipes moan in protest. The house misses you. Why did you abandon it? Maria broke down. It was too much. The kids were asking questions. Why? Don't we live in our new house? What's wrong with the mailbox? Why does Dad stay up all night? The truth, of course, could never be shared with them. How do you explain to a 6-year-old that someone wants to harvest their young blood for a reason no one can understand? How do you tell them their laughter in the sunroom may have summoned a phantom from the past? The Broaddusses tried to move forward. They began therapy. Derek found himself spiraling online, diving into forums about stalkers, hauntings, cults. That's when he stumbled across an obscure Reddit thread titled simply 657B. The posts were fragmented, riddled with misspellings, but one user, Raven Watcher, stood out. Their messages were poetic, eerie. The house cries when it is empty, one post said. Another read, the walls remember every heartbeat, every scream. Was it the Watcher, a copycat, or something else? Derek responded under a fake name. He baited the user, asking subtle questions, probing for any clue. After 3 days, Raven Watcher replied, "You're closer than you think. Look under the third stair." Derek raced to the house that night, flashlight in hand. He pulled up the stair tread on the third step. There, beneath layers of dust and rot, he found a small metal box. Inside, a single Polaroid photo, heavily faded, showing what appeared to be a child standing in the attic. The same attic the Watcher referenced, wearing a mask. Not a Halloween mask. Something old, wooden, hand-carved. The eyes were hollow. Date on the back of the photo read 1975. Derek showed the photo to police. They were baffled. The attic had no record of renovations since 1970. The walls were original. No secret cameras. No signs of forced entry. Yet someone had been up there. Recently, the dust was disturbed. Footprints led to the far corner, then stopped. It was like the person had vanished into the walls. Meanwhile, Maria received her own letter, hand-delivered to her mother's house, miles away. "Distance won't save you," it said. "I see you. I see them. Young blood strongest when separated. The house misses them." That was the turning point. They knew they had to make a move, not just physically, but legally. Derek filed a lawsuit against the previous owners, claiming they had failed to disclose the Watcher's presence. It made headlines. Suddenly, the Watcher wasn't just a nightmare. He was a media phenomenon. News vans parked outside 657 Boulevard. Talk shows debated the ethics of disclosure. Was the Watcher real? Was it a hoax? A marketing stunt? A delusion? The Broaddusses were mocked, pitied, abused. But behind closed doors, the fear remained. They tried renting the house again. One tenant agreed on the condition of a reduced price. Within 2 weeks, that tenant reported receiving a letter. "You are living in someone else's dream. You should not be here. The house was never meant for you." They moved out that night, and still no fingerprints. No DNA. No video footage. The letters were postmarked from nearby towns, but always dropped into anonymous mailboxes. The Watcher was careful, smart, patient. By now, Derek was unraveling. He confided in a friend, someone he trusted, someone who had once worked as a journalist. They collaborated on a theory. What if the Watcher wasn't a stranger? What if it was someone from the original families who lived at 657 Boulevard? Someone who believed the house had been taken from them? A lineage broken? A legacy stolen? They traced the original blueprints of the house. That's when they found it. A small room behind the basement furnace. A space not listed on any modern plans. Derek and the friend entered the basement at 2 a.m., armed with a crowbar and a camera. They pried open the panel and crawled through. The space was narrow, suffocating, pitch black. The walls were covered in markings, names, dates, scribbles in red ink. In the center, a single item, a child's shoe covered in dust. They left in silence. That night, Derek received a final letter, one that would redefine everything. "You have found what you were never meant to see. The house told you, it begged you, but you kept digging. Now the blood is on your hands, and the house is no longer crying. It's awake." The whispers never stopped. Even as the walls remained still, even as the house stood silent, Derek and Maria Broaddus knew he was still there, watching, waiting. The watcher had not written for weeks. But the silence wasn't comforting. It was suffocating. It was the calm before a storm they couldn't predict. By now, their once promising future had eroded into a never-ending nightmare. Maria couldn't sleep. Derek's hair began to gray prematurely. The kids were moved to a friend's home in another town, but even there, the watcher seemed to reach. One night, Maria returned to find a note pinned to their temporary home's front door. No envelope, just a sheet of yellowed paper with 4 chilling words in the same familiar handwriting. "Are you feeling safe?" That letter changed everything. It proved what they feared most. The watcher wasn't watching the house. He was watching them. They intensified their investigation. Derek paid out of pocket for a tech firm to perform digital surveillance sweeps. Hidden devices were installed around the house, the street, even in their new home. They consulted a former CIA agent who speculated the letters may be coded messages. The agent theorized that the watcher may not be working alone, that this was something deeper, more organized. But Derek couldn't buy into conspiracy. For him, the answer was closer, simpler. Someone in Westfield was playing God, enjoying the power of fear. He started making secret visits to neighbors, engaging them in long conversations, watching for body language, twitches, stutters, awkward pauses. He became obsessed. Then, another shift. A 5th letter arrived, written on black, paper in red ink. No longer welcoming, no longer poetic. It was raw, angry, accusatory. "You've let the house rot," it read. "You turned 657 into a circus. You fed it to the world, and now the world laughs. You will pay for your betrayal. The house remembers." Derek, read it again and again, heart pounding. Something had changed in tone. It was no longer about watching. It was about punishment. 2 nights later, the home security system detected movement in the basement. Despite the house being empty, police rushed in. Nothing. No broken windows. No unlocked doors. But the dust on the basement floor had been disturbed. One perfect footprint. And on the wall, carved with a small blade, "I am the watcher." Panic returned. But now it wasn't just fear, it was rage. Derek snapped. He drove to 657 Boulevard, stormed inside, and screamed into the darkness. "Show yourself." His voice echoed through the empty halls, met with silence. He punched the wall. He was losing control. That week, they took a drastic step. Derek and Maria decided to sell the house at a loss, but no one wanted it. Realtors avoided it. Local families feared it. Eventually, a filmmaker offered to buy it, not to live in, but to document its horror. Derek refused. "This is not a story," he said. "This is our life." Still, the watcher wrote, Letter 6. "Do you think selling erases the curse? Do you think it ends when you walk away? You've only given me more to watch. The walls are not where it ends. The bloodline is where it begins." Bloodline. That word gnawed at them. Did the watcher know their family history? Was this personal or symbolic? Derek dug deeper. He visited libraries, searched public records. He found something. A name. Andrew Peterson. In the 1920s. Peterson had been a caretaker of the property. A quiet man. No family. No ties. Just a journal left behind, filled with ramblings about hearing voices from the house, warnings of the return, and references to a watcher who whispered from within the walls. But Peterson never signed the journal. He signed it, the first watcher. Was it just madness, or a tradition passed through generations? Derek now believed the watcher was part of a sick legacy, maybe inherited, maybe chosen. A game of power, a cult, a curse. One final letter arrived. No envelope, just a square of parchment nailed to the front door of their rental home. On it, a riddle. The ones before you fled, the ones after you will fall. The house remains, always. As will. Derek stood outside 657 Boulevard one last time. He stared at the darkened windows, the way the shadows moved inside, the way the air felt heavier here than anywhere else. Then he turned away. He had nothing left to give. They sold a house for half its worth, moved states away, changed names. The letters stopped, but not the watching. Because fear like that doesn't need letters to survive. It lives in memory, in glances over your shoulder, in creaks that don't belong, in late night knocks that never come again. 657 Boulevard still stands. And some say the watcher still writes. But to this day, no fingerprints, no face, no justice. Only one truth remains. The watcher was never watching the house. He was watching them. He might be watching you. The fear that once crept slowly had now taken permanent residence in Derek and Maria Broaddus's lives. Months had passed, and the watcher's letters didn't stop. In fact, they had become more personal, more sinister. Each word pierced deeper, like a knife slowly twisting into their sanity. Are you still afraid? One letter read, good. Fear is what keeps you sharp. Fear is what keeps the house alive. The watcher knew their routines. He referenced Maria's late-night walks when she thought no one was watching. He mentioned Derek's attempts to sell the house under fake names. He even knew the name of the real estate lawyer, something they had shared with no one outside their closest circle. The paranoia had evolved into obsession. Derek, once a reserved, composed man, had become consumed. He took night shifts, watching the house, hidden behind trees. He created makeshift surveillance using drones. He planted decoy packages on the porch, hoping someone would steal one, revealing themselves. Maria, once joyful and full of life, now barely spoke to neighbors or friends. Their children started having nightmares. One night, their youngest daughter woke up screaming, saying she saw someone standing at her bedroom window. Still, the watcher was never caught. In a final attempt to rid themselves of this nightmare, Derek and Maria commissioned a complete home inspection, not just usual structural checks, but a forensic-style search. Thermal cameras, wall probing, ground radar. They were looking for anything: hidden rooms, old surveillance equipment, even buried items. What they found was chilling in its own way. Nothing. Nothing at all. The emptiness was more terrifying than evidence. In a final twist of desperation, Derek wrote an anonymous letter to the neighborhood, pretending to be the watcher himself. His goal? To spark fear in others, to force some neighbor to confess or make a mistake. But it backfired. The neighborhood turned against the Broadduses. They accused the couple of faking the entire ordeal for attention or profit. The watcher didn't stop. One day, a letter arrived that was different from the rest. It wasn't threatening. It was almost poetic. You changed the house, but it changed you too. You tried to erase its past, but it wrote itself into your future. Letter ended with a single sentence. It's time for you to leave. And finally, they did. After years of fear, ridicule, and trauma, the Broadduses sold the house at a significant loss. They never moved in, never made memories inside. 657 Boulevard remained just a shell of broken dreams and a host to a haunting that may never be explained. The new owners received no letters, at least none they made public. Some say the watcher grew bored. Others say he found new prey. Or maybe, just maybe, the house had finally accepted its fate and gone silent. To this day, the case remains unsolved. No suspects, no fingerprints, no camera footage, just one question. Who was the watcher? A deranged neighbor? A past resident? A ghost bound to the land? Or a manifestation of the paranoia that lives inside all of us, fed by fear, nurtured by mystery? Whatever the truth, one thing is certain: some homes aren't meant to be lived in, some stories aren't meant to have endings, and some eyes never blink. The watcher is still out. They're watching, waiting,